Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Sitting here Saturday morning, drinking my cup of coffee, rewatching this football game, looking at some numbers, and also checking out some other takes on this football game we just saw Friday night. The thing that confuses me the most is why does it just need to be about Indiana not being a good football team, not deserving to be in the college football playoffs, and very little people are given the respect that I think Notre Dame deserves in terms of how good of a team this is, how complete of a team this is, and really how dangerous they can be in the college football playoffs. Both things can be true. I think even some Notre Dame fans might look at Indiana and say, yeah, this is the second time we've seen them bump up against college football playoff caliber teams, right? Notre Dame, Ohio State. In both times, they didn't really look like they belonged on the same football field. That can be true, but at the same time, we can give Notre Dame a lot of credit for how good of a football team this is. And if they operated in the red zone a little bit better, you might be looking at a completely different game. And we all kind of know those 14 points from Indiana kind of came in garbage time towards the end of the game. Like, this was a Notre Dame team that came out and was very complete on both sides of the football, played exceptionally well. I think you have to give credit where credit is due. And again, you can have the take that Indiana shouldn't have been in the college football playoffs. But you also, on the same time, you don't have to take away from what Notre Dame is as a football team because they're playing their best football when it matters down the stretch. Want to get into a few big takeaways that I had in this football game, fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, Indiana fans, Notre Dame fans, SEC fans who might disagree with me, let it fly in the comment section. A lot of different takes you can have about this football game. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into this, and let's start with the victors. This Notre Dame team. We'll start on the offensive side of the football. My biggest takeaway is this team, they know who they are on the offensive side. And I give Mike Denbrock so much credit in terms of designing and scheming up an offense that is leaning into this Notre Dame team's strengths. You look at how it's designed. We're going to run the football. And one of the question marks we had for Notre Dame coming into the college football playoffs is, can you be explosive? And normally when you're talking about explosive plays, it has to do with the downfield passing attack. That's not necessarily true with Notre Dame. They don't push the ball down the field all that often. Riley Leonard's average depth of target in this football game was 5.4 yards down the field. Only 2 passes of his all game went 20 plus yards down the field. They manufacture explosive plays in different ways, especially when you have running backs like Jeremiah Love who go 10-5 in the 100-meter dash. And so it doesn't necessarily need to be, hey, we're going to throw the football down the field to manufacture explosives when you have a lot of guys on your football team that can really operate with the football in their hands. And I think it starts with a guy like Jeremiah Love, but all three of those running backs, I mean, they're very, very good in this Notre Dame offensive line. Although sometimes a young offensive line one of your takes can be Marcus Freeman is doing a great job. There's been some really crucial injuries all over this Notre Dame roster, and they really don't seem to skip a beat. This offensive line, although still trying to come together in pass protection, it can really run block and can really move some bodies off the line of scrimmage. One of the conversations that's kind of getting lost here is that this is an Indiana front seven that has been one of the better units in the country stopping the run up until this point. And yes, have they seen extremely dynamic rushing attacks? You could argue about that, but they've been very good creating negative plays and not giving up explosive plays. Notre Dame was able to find those, especially when you have a guy like Jeremiah Love. And then you look at the passing attack and say, all right, maybe we do struggle a little bit at times in pass protection. And maybe we don't have a ton of wide receivers that can work vertically down the field. We're going to mold this passing attack. One, we're going to marry it with the run game. And then secondly, we're going to lean into what we do best. And that's Riley Leonard's short intermediate route trees and getting the football to our guys in space and letting them work after the catch. And it's a very efficient passing attack. Obviously, you saw Riley Leonard throw that early pick. That not necessarily his fault. I look at it and say, this is a team that knows who they are. And you see so many good offensive coordinators really fail to tailor their offense to their personnel, I think Mike Denbrock is doing a really good job. And you could argue, I think the biggest question mark that at least I have about Notre Dame and what's their ceiling in terms of can they go win a national championship, I think it comes down to, can you find a play or two every single game over the next couple of weeks where you're finding explosive down the field in this passing attack? If you can have that come on a little bit down the stretch, this team becomes so dangerous. Because you look at how you got to play in Notre Dame, you got to start walking safeties into the box to try to stop this rushing attack. And when teams do that, can Riley Leonard, can these pass catches on the outside win vertically down the field and find some of those game-changing plays if Notre Dame knocks off Georgia? And if Notre Dame goes on to win a national championship, which I think they are certainly capable of doing, they got to find some of those plays. But again, I think they know who they are on offense and they stick to it. And it's an offense that can really put up some points because they tailor their offense to the personnel. Now, what makes this Notre Dame team, at least in my opinion, really special is this defense. And this kind of goes to my overall take on Notre Dame is it's just so solid. All three levels is really, really good. You look at the linebacker play, very solid. Defensive line, great. Secondary is, we're, again, a secondary that's gone through some massive injuries throughout the 2024 season. This is a secondary that is incredibly sticky. How many times did Indiana create separation? A lot of the successful plays that Indiana had in the downfield passing attack were because Curtis Rourke throws a nice back shoulder and a guy like Elijah Surratt goes up and makes a really good play. Like a lot of times it was not the Notre Dame secondary that was blowing a coverage or not playing the football in the air. Like Indiana made a few plays, especially in that second half, that you just got to kind of tip your cap and clap your hands to. And Indiana's been doing that all year, quite frankly, on the offensive side of the football. But this secondary, in terms of just they don't bust coverages, they don't give up a lot of separation. It's just so hard to penetrate because of how solid this unit is as a whole. I think one of the things that was one of my big takeaways is you 3 sacks, 10 TFLs. You were doing a nice job creating a lot of negative plays. And at the same time, you didn't really give up any explosives. Indiana did not have an offensive play that went for over 30 yards in that football game. If you can create negative plays and not give up those game-changing explosive plays, chances are you're going to be pretty damn good on defense. And that's kind of what Notre Dame was. Again, Indiana could not get anything going on the offensive side of the football after that first drive after the Riley Leonard pick. They got a couple nice plays together before the interception that Curtis Rourke threw in the red area. And then the last 5 minutes of this football game. Then again, Indiana came up with some good plays, but we kind of all know is a little bit of a pseudo garbage time situation. Xavier Watts, he's the best player on the football field. And what he does, it's hard to find safeties that can do it all. Xavier Watts is one of them. Ball hawking safety that always seems to be in the right place to come up with some turnovers. But then like what he does when he comes into the box, what he does when he's asked to play in man coverage, this to me is an all-around safety that you can have do anything you want on the football field, and he can do it at a high level. I thought Leonard Moore was a very, very good out there on the boundary. You got a true freshman and Bryce Young coming off the edge. And that was probably one of the question marks we had for Notre Dame coming into 2024 was, do they have that edge rusher that can go and wreck a game on 3rd and long? Bryce Young's becoming that guy as a true freshman. Like, can he continue to take those steps and get better as this season goes on and as these playoffs go on to be that kind of guy? At the end of the day, and this is kind of when you start looking forward to Notre Dame. So you got Georgia coming up next. This is when you look at the landscape of the college football playoffs, I don't know how many teams you look at and say, yeah, you don't have a chance at playing. Like, we've seen some Georgia teams and we've seen some Alabama teams that, I thought nailed it in his college football analysis here. Shane Gillis on College Game Day won. Funny dude. But more importantly, I think he nailed it in saying, look, there's not a team this year where you're looking at and say, well, you don't have a chance to beat. And so I think that really helps a Notre Dame team that, okay, you maybe have question marks about how high is the ceiling, but a base level of play you're going to get from Notre Dame is pretty damn good. They don't have a lot of holes. That means a lot when you're talking about there's not really a team that has that Death Star. You can't beat them. Look to it. I think that puts Notre Dame in a really good spot. And most importantly, this team's playing their best football down the stretch. And that matters when you're talking about stringing a couple of wins together to go win a national championship. Georgia without Carson Beck, this is going to – I'm not necessarily taking Notre Dame right now. I feel like a lot of people are writing them off and just saying, all right, Notre Dame's average. Indiana just wasn't a playoff team. I don't think that's true. Yes, Indiana might not be a college football playoff team. That part might be true, but that doesn't mean Notre Dame ain't a good team. They dominated this football game on Friday night. We'll pause it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.